Hi guys, I did design and technology at GCSE and I got to grade 9. This video is all about the coursework and how I got 91% in it. The actual mark I scored was 80 out of 88. Because of COVID, some marks were not included in the final making stage, so it was out of 88 and not 100. I submitted it in June of 2022 and I did Edexcel as my exam board, though this video will be just as useful for AQA students. My last disclaimer is I will be showing you my entire coursework in the 4 sections: investigate, design, make, and evaluate, which is how the coursework is split for Edexcel. But please bear in mind that this was produced a few years ago, and there are many things that were changed to improve it, so it is by far not the best piece of work. And I'll talk about that throughout. Okay, let's talk about your PowerPoint, or folder as I'll refer to it as, and etiquette surrounding that. Designing a border for the pages was the very first thing I actually did for my folder. My only advice is don't make the border too thick. I've seen people do this and it will reduce the amount of space you have on your page. This may seem like a good idea, but in hindsight it's not, because your pages will look better if there's less of them, but each one is more detailed. Quality over quantity really stands here. And leave your background white. It will help with putting pictures on. With sketches, if you do them on white paper, the background should blend in, just making everything look better. A good hack is using the website remove.bg to remove any background from the pictures. You won't have that white box you would have on a colored background. And your folder is what gets marked, so really go above and beyond on that, even on the aesthetics. The next thing you'll do is pick a contextual challenge. You get 3 different areas with 2 topics for each, so 6 challenges, and you pick one to design a product based on. My advice with this is pick something that interests you, but at the end of the day it doesn't matter too much. And of course the contexts change every year. Talk to your teacher and see which ones they think are the easiest. At this stage, even if you pick what is most popular in your class, that's fine and it won't be a disadvantage to you, just because you're not unique. The uniqueness will start once you've picked the context. But even if you decide to pick something completely different to the rest of your class, that is also totally fine and it won't be a disadvantage. Once you get started with thinking of ideas, that's when I'd say focus on doing something different than everyone else. Anyway, once you've chosen one, you have to analyze the statement a bit and see what possibilities there are and begin exploring your ideas. Keep everything really broad at the stage and think outside of the box. Even if your ideas are loosely related to the initial contextual challenge, that's fine. So here's my analysis of the contextual challenges. Feel free to pause to read this. I won't go in too much detail, otherwise this video will be way too long. But you can see I created a small mind map for each contextual challenge. I did this on the site Koggle, and on the whole, mind maps are good for the early stages. And on the bottom of each page, it did say my name and center number, etc. But I have removed that for this obviously. So if you notice an empty space on the bottom of each page, that is why. In the investigate stage, you need to find the problem that you're going to fix. There must be a problem along with a person or group of people who face this problem. That's your client. You go on to assess the needs, wants, and values of this client in relation to the situation, which is called the design brief. There's a lot of research methods you can pick from. Stuff like a client interview, which I would say is a must, a site visit, analysis of the stakeholders, which are the people affected by the problem or the solution, but who are not your client specifically, a life cycle analysis of existing products, a product comparison between existing products, a questionnaire, which I would only recommend if you have a group of people as your client, investigating a specific designer that you're inspired by, etc. Pick a couple of these methods and that's what goes in your research section. I'll show you my research pages so you see what I mean. I started with the initial investigations page on which I have this research and plan. This leads on to my main pages of research. I did a client profile, looked at existing products on Amazon, and research materials as well for outdoor use. This research could be much better, and you guys watching should aim to have more thorough research than this. The point of your research is to make your designing process easier. As I said before, every decision you make needs to be reflected in your folder. I actually think the best folders are those that narrate the full experience, from the contextual challenge to the end product. You can't skip steps, so I would really try to show every step in your folder. The research ends with your specification, which is a specific set of limitations almost that your design will have to follow. The more in-depth your specification, the better. And I've got a whole separate video on what makes a good specification. Here's my spec. Pay attention to the columns along the top. The tested column will come in handy for the final evaluation section. As I said, I've got a separate video that goes into more detail on the specification page. This marks the end of the investigate stage, which is worth 16 marks. Moving on to design, you'll start off by coming up with some initial or hazy ideas. You need to generate a wide range of design ideas to get in the top band of the mark scheme, so around 8 or 10 solid ideas that are all different from each other. In terms of presentation, simple sketching is enough at this stage. A few annotations on top of these sketches showing how that design may function is also a good idea and is something that I did not do. Annotations are different to labels. You don't need to label obvious features, but instead explain why you have included that feature and other possibilities for future innovation. These ideas are meant to be rough and not finalized in any way, so you can point out mistakes and areas for development. So here's my initial designs page. I've got 8 designs on here. You'll also notice I've started putting an introduction and sometimes a conclusion on every page. I would recommend this just to introduce what the page is for. Now you pick around 3 ideas to refine, so presenting them in a better way ready for future development. Especially if a design has moving parts, you should show exactly how it could work with exploded views and other communication methods. To quickly talk about communication methods, there are 8 marks across the design stage for communication. This means using a variety of 2D and 3D drawing methods, like 1 and 2-point perspective, isometric, oblique, freehand sketching, orthographic views, exploded views, rendering, even using CAD software to present your ideas. So these 3 refinement pages are great to show off various drawing methods. I can make a separate video on communication methods if people want that, let me know in the comments. You should also use physical modeling here, with cardboard, etc. as another communication method. So here's my 3 refined initial ideas pages. I've definitely got a good variety of communication methods, but these pages are far from perfect. Now on to picking one of these ideas to take further into development and eventually manufacture. I've done a review of initial ideas page where I've compared my 3 ideas against one another. There's another 8 marks for this. I chose to compare each design with the specification. This is why getting your specification correct is so important. It is used in this section and again later on in the evaluation section. We now enter the development stage where things get more hands-on. The purpose of development is to go from a decent initial idea to a fully technical plan on how you're going to manufacture the final product. So part of this is improving upon your initial idea to make it better and more functional so it better meets the specification, but also making your idea feasible so you can actually produce it in your school workshop. There are 12 marks for development, and the top mark band states, fully appropriate use of research to inform ongoing developmental changes. Just to add, you can do extra research as part of your development if you missed something earlier on. The mark scheme continues to say, fully sound refinements of design ideas and a design solution that fully meets the requirements of the design specification, informed by the fully sound application of technical knowledge of materials and processes, and the effective application of modeling or simulation techniques. Before manufacturing, you have to be sure your product will work, and you need to know exactly step by step how you will make it. Lastly, the mark scheme says the chosen design idea shows fully appropriate application of calculations to determine all material quantities and technical details of materials, processes, and components that could be interpreted by a third party. So by the end of the development, once you've produced your final design and final drawings, someone else should be able to manufacture your product based on the information you've put in your folder. So this includes a manufacturing plan that has a step-by-step guide on exactly what you would do and what theoretically someone else could do to create the same final product. The whole point of this is to eliminate any guesswork when it comes to manufacture. Okay, here's my development pages. I think this probably was my favorite section, and even in my A-level coursework, I quite enjoyed the development stage. I will at some point do a separate video on my whole A-level coursework as well. So in total, I did 4 pages. I'm developing and improving various aspects of my product. If you have a more complex design with maybe more moving parts, your development will naturally be longer because it will take you more time to perfect each moving part in your product. In terms of communication, you can see how much physical modeling I did, and your teacher should encourage you to do this as well. At this point, drawings aren't enough to know if things will work in the real world. And this is where you start to finalize the final dimensions as well. Throughout your entire coursework, you need to be in communication with your client. I realized I didn't mention this earlier on, but this is super important. So in the review of initial ideas, it should be your client that makes the decision, and here your client should be guiding the changes you make as well. So the last part of design is presenting your final designs and manufacturing plan and ending with the review of your chosen idea. This review is worth 8 marks. I'll just show you my pages and talk you through it. So the final design proposal must have the final dimensions. You can do these digitally using a CAD software or something similar like the application 2D design, or do it on paper like I've done. The rest of this page is self-explanatory. I'm just presenting my final idea. Then your plan of manufacture. This needs to be in really good detail and it may run over multiple pages. Step by step, you need to lay out each individual process, the tools needed, how long you expect each process to take, and safety stuff. The proof of concept alternative column is specific to my year. We didn't have to make the exact final product. We could make an alternative version from cheaper and easier to access materials due to COVID, which is why I made my final product from mostly MDF. In reality, an outdoor product made from MDF would not work. Then these final 2 pages for the section is the review of the design. I have again compared it with the specification and I've got client feedback as well, though it is quite basic. I have shown how my idea has changed from the initial idea. The top mark band says fully developed analysis of the refinements made to the chosen idea, so a chosen design in response to the contextual challenge, which considers fully appropriate factors and makes fully appropriate connections between elements of the design, and effective evaluation of the refinements made to the chosen idea, supported by fully sound reference to feedback made by others, so basically like your client, and the consideration of materials, components, and manufacturing techniques. Okay, now we get onto the making stage. The first page should be a cutting list of all the materials you will need, along with justifications why you have chosen that material. Then we get onto the main bit, which is the manufacturing diary. I recommend you take literally hundreds of pictures throughout your manufacturing process, and then you can pick some from each step to narrate the whole process. You also get marks for showing off the variety of tools you used and manufacturing processes, along with safety precautions. I'll put the mark bands on screen so you can read those. Let's look through my manufacturing pages. This is my cutting list. You do get up to 8 marks for this. Then my first manufacturing diary page. It's a record of step by step what you did to produce your final product. You can leave in the mistakes you made because you will make some sort of mistake in manufacturing and things won't always go exactly to plan. But the whole point is you can analyze why that mistake happened and if there was anything you could have done to prevent it. To go the extra mile, you could color code the text below each step to show 3 things: skills and processes, accuracy and quality measures, and safety. This is what I did in my A-level coursework, and there's no reason you can't do it here as well. You're just making it super clear to the teacher and whoever else marks this, that you know the 3 areas where you can get marks for. And then this is my second page. I mostly use the laser cutter. And then depending on the size and complexity of the product, you can have extra pages to show off the final pictures. And that marks the end of manufacturing. This section is 36 marks in LXL. And we end with the evaluate stage. Part of this is testing the final product. You can do various physical tests if your product is something physical to see if it functions as intended. Is the product durable, waterproof, easy to carry, checking those sorts of things. Some tests will give you conclusive results and others won't. For example, easy to carry, you can ask someone to carry your product and the result of the test is just their opinion. You can quote this in your folder and then analyze what they say. Always provide evidence for each test that you carry out on your product. I did a physical test and put pictures of that. You also should evaluate the outcome against your specification, checking if it nearly meets or doesn't meet each specification point. I also conducted a life cycle analysis of the product, and here you're looking at the environmental impact of each stage. There's 6 marks for this whole section, which is clearly not a lot, but it's still worth putting in effort here. Obviously, each mark counts. The top band of the mark scheme says fully developed analysis of the prototype, developed in response to the contextual challenge, taking into account the end user and product specification, and showing a fully considered approach to testing against measurable criteria. Effective evaluation of the prototype, taking into account the intended purpose of the prototype, including its sustainability through life cycle analysis and drawing fully appropriate conclusions from testing against measurable criteria. And here are my 4 evaluate pages. I'll let you pause the video to read each one in more detail. But I think that's all I've got to say for this video. As I've mentioned, I'm not super proud of this work, but in the end it got a decent mark, so I can't complain. I may at some point do a video like this for my A-level coursework. I got 109 out of 120 in that. If you want me to make an in-depth video on any specific part of this NEA, let me know in the comments. I will be making theory videos for both GCSE and A-level as well. Bye guys!